All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to State of Sponge 23. So it's been quite a while going now. I think we are almost at Spongy's 8th birthday in Screwball. Am I right on that?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, getting close. It's been an awful long time. So yes, we've got what, roughly a month to go before then. In fact, I think exactly a month. A month and a couple of days. Yeah. So almost 8 years. It's been quite a while. So I'd like to welcome those of us in attendance today. It's a fairly small turnout. We've had a fair few people come up busy. So it's myself, Owen, Faith KO, and Inscrutable. So,
G'day.
Hello.
so I've got a few things to sort of run through, and as always, we'd like to invite Q&A. So if you've got any questions, comments, just anything you want to talk about, this is a really good opportunity to do so. Because we'll get through most of our content fairly quickly. So we'd like to spend a bit of time on discussion. And as you'll notice, we're in a modded SpongeForge world, so we might have some fun checking out all the cool little create contraptions Inscrutable has kindly got going. Yeah, it's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, we had this set up last time actually too, just as a sort of a showcase. But we actually wanted to have players on it, so we want to show that we've actually got SpongeForge working with mods at last, and it's reasonably stable. I mean, this has been going for over 24 hours without any issues. So
I mean, SpongeForge 1.16.5 has been pretty consistently stable for a while. It's just a few mod that we've documented. As we'll get to, the Sponge Docs, great place to check out any information if you do have trouble running SpongeForge in a mod pack. Inscrutable's been really good about making sure we've got a list of mods that do cause trouble, and we've been helping out on the Discord because that
but,
comes up every so often.
yeah, I mean, the important part about SpongeForge 1.16.5 is we hope we are nearly done with development of it, because we'd like to be able to move on and do something somewhat more modern. And so really we want to sort out just what last issues do exist with 1.16.5, and have people hopefully help us identify the remaining incompatibility problems and narrow down on what we can do about them, because we obviously can't make it compatible with every single mod out there because there are tens of thousands of them. But we can make a valiant attempt at least.
Yes. It's an incredibly difficult task, but obviously we've narrowed down. Most mods are compatible that we found. There's just been a few standouts. I've just noticed on Twitch someone's asking where. Oh, thank you, Larsec, for popping that. Yeah, so if you want to join in the server, the mod pack is available on our announcements page. It's just a very little one. It's essentially just create flywheel forge for 1.16.5. Just remember to use Java 8 when you do the install, else it won't quite work.
And we do not recommend Optifine.
No. But yes, and you can join the server on demo.spongepower.org or block19.spongepower.org. I will just paste that in the chat. There we are. Mr. Axe TV, sorry, yeah, Sponge does not work with Spigot paper plugins. So plugins have to be developed for the Sponge API to run on Sponge. There are a fair few plugins that do have versions for both the bucket-derived APIs and Sponge, and there's the ones that support basically everything, like Forge and Fabric and so on. Okay, so yeah, as you can tell, this is probably going to be a bit more free flow. We'll answer questions as they come up, but we'll try and get through a bit of our content as well. So in terms of development, as you can see, we're on 1.16.5 at the moment. This is a bit of a little finale for 1.16.5. So we've got SpongeVanilla has been stable for quite a while. SpongeForge, again, is pretty stable. Most of the time these days it's just the occasional mod pack issue that comes up, but there's only so much we can do there. So we're trying to wrap up 1.16.5 support and move along to SpongeForge on newer versions like 1.19.4 and the 1.20 series, but that's still a work in progress. So I believe Yaragorix has been updating the Unix the unit test PR. Um, there's currently a few blockers with regards to SpongeForge toolchains, specifically with regards to how we're using the mappings. So I believe currently there's an issue between using vanilla mappings, so the Mojang provided ones, and Sarge mappings, which Forge requires. But I have heard there's some debate in the community about whether or not, in the Forge and NeoForge community about whether or not they're going to keep requiring Sarge mappings going forward. For us, the Mojang provided mappings are much easier to use because that's what we use for SpongeVanilla. So currently the issue is just in ensuring compatibility between the two systems. But
Interestingly enough, the last I'd heard, I think both of them decided that they might well just move forward with the Mojang mappings, but we shall see.
yeah. So that's something we'll find out on. If they do decide to use the Mojang mappings, it makes our lives much easier. I know ZML and GDM were both looking at porting everything to just using vanilla anyway. But we'll see what happens there. So there's a bit of that's outside of our hands. And we'll see what Forge and NeoForge decide. If they do decide to use the Mojang mappings, it's very straightforward, hopefully. The actual updates should be fairly minor, mostly world related. But we'll see what happens there. Was there anything you wanted to add to that, Faith?
No.
It's always good to get developers' input on these things.
I'll respond to a few of the comments we've had. Waterpicker talking about finally 1.16.5 is years old. Yes, 1.16.5 has been around a while. That's why we're doing a little sort of finale show off. We wanted to hop on a SpongeForge modded world and just show that this is the sort of final state of it. It has been pretty stable for a while. Updating to the newer stuff is a little more challenging, as I mentioned, but we're hoping to get that sorted again, depending on what is decided on outside our community. Mr. Axe TV asked, why didn't you integrate Spigot stuff at the beginning when you started this project? So that's going back a while. That's going back 8 years. And the issue...
we couldn't.
Yeah, we simply couldn't. Like, there's no way to get a plugin API that works with both Forge and with that Bucket API nicely.
Well,
pretty
the
much
real issue is compatibility. I mean, that's part of the
Yes.
reason Sponge was developed in the first place. You'd be just as well asking, can you get Bucket to work with Fabric? And the answer is sort of, but with a lot of compromises because the whole design philosophy of the two APIs are somewhat different. And the real problem with the Bucket one, it was designed for a version of Minecraft that's now 10 years old, and it's got a little bit of baggage.
Yes, and that's something that we've actually also been quite aware of. If you look, we don't just have Sponge API as a one time. This is the API forever. We released versions of the API with Minecraft versions. So our 1.12 release was API 7. And then 1.16.5 has been on API 8, and there's actually been a lot of breaking changes between those. There's still like stuff that's in common. Like it's a lot more straightforward to update, API 7 to API 8 than it would be to do a complete rewrite. But then for the newer versions of Minecraft, like 1.19 and 1.20, which is actually fairly similar under the hood, APIs 10 and 11 are both very similar to their API 8 predecessor. So it's basically just ensuring that plugins stay updated with regards to the Minecraft version that they're running on, and we try and keep those changes as small as possible, but occasionally things do break. Yeah, like even as a 8-year-old, almost 8-year-old project, we do have breaking changes, which is a sort of key difference there. But there are other projects that do what you say, that implement that API and obviously come with those compromises intact. Like they're welcome to do that. We just do what we can here. So I'll check a couple of other questions that we've got here. Sorry, not too many. Mostly been discussion on that very point. Excellent. Thank you all. I'll quickly move along to talking about 119.4 API 10. I might bring Faith in on this, but as far as I'm aware, SpongeVanilla has largely been stable since, for quite a few months now, hasn't it?
Yeah, we still have a few issues with inventory stuff, but it's basically just warnings that we at some point need to get to fix them all. Basically, when we are not able to capture an inventory change, it prints a warning at the moment. Same for API 11.
It can print quite a lot of them, can't it?
Every time a change happens that we didn't capture.
Yeah, because I mean, people have been complaining that that in itself is causing lag.
Yeah, I guess that's something where we just sort of need to find everything possible to capture, and once we've done that, it sort of solves the problem. It's just
But a nice
building
way
up
of
that
suppressing
list.
warnings if need be.
Yeah.
We've had a few more people join the actual server. That's nice. We're aware
TPS is
that
still nominal.
Yep, we're aware that the turnout on the server itself might be a bit smaller because of the mod pack, but yeah, we thought it'd be nice to hop on and check out. You can also, run around the world. We've got a little Ferris wheel up to the right side of the stage, I believe, and you can see there's a few little contraptions running away in the background as well. So feel free to check things out. We'll probably have a fly around later and break stuff.
Feel free
Have
to
fun.
build if you want. There are kits available too. I mean, one of the things we want to do is test out our new SpongeForge server for robustness. So, the TPS is still pretty damn good. So, carry on.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on from 119.4, we've got 120 and API 11. So we've had our 120 and 1.20.1 builds out for a little while now. So those are all still up. Haven't heard too many complaints about those, but again, if you run those, if you run into any issues, please make issue reports on our GitHub. We'd really appreciate it. We want to try and make sure that, again, SpongeVanilla is nice and stable because that'll make updating SpongeForge, again, once we clear those blockers, much faster. And hopefully we'll have, much more polished SpongeForge implementation as a result. So if you do use SpongeVanilla and you find any issues, again, please report. Or if you can even make PRs, that'd be great. We have also seen that Mojang has announced a snapshot for 1.20.2 that changes a few things under the hood, both with regards to actual gameplay features, but it looks like there'll be a few technical changes. So in keeping with the new API update policy we announced, I think it was at the beginning of this year, or again, a little while ago now, API 11 is not fixed or frozen until the end of the 1.20 series of updates. Because Mojang nowadays, they will do technical under the hood changes during the lifetime of the point updates. So we have to wait till they've finalized that before we can finalize the API. So API 11 is sort of, best effort until Mojang freezes their code, and then we can freeze the API, which is what we've done with 119.4 essentially. Okay, so I'll get back and bring up some of these questions we've got. Mr. Axe TV asked, any plans to add a premium section for plugins mods? No, we don't have plans as Sponge to do that. Like, we've sort of been fairly consistent on this because there is a lot of hassle to us in setting up a whole payment platform and everything. And then, actually moderating deals if something goes wrong. There's a whole lot of issues there for us to sort of handle, which we don't quite want to get into. But there's nothing stopping someone from implementing that elsewhere. Like, if someone wants to do a third-party site for that, again, our stuff is all MIT licensed. Plugins don't have to be hosted on all. They're free to do that. We would encourage open source development, though. Like, that's what we all do here at Sponge.
What's that new hosting service that everything keeps turning up on now? Is it Mojira or something? Or?
And I think that's Modrinth. I don't know if they
Modrinth,
do
that's it. Yeah.
that kind of thing. But that's an example of, like, stuff doesn't actually have to be hosted on all. I think there are maybe a couple of Sponge plugins hosted on Modrinth. But yeah, there's nothing requiring anything to be linked to us necessarily. Waterpick asked, "What's the current stance on Sponge on Fabric?" Again, as always, we don't have the developer power to be able to implement a third one, but people are more than welcome to. Like, they're more than welcome to implement the API.
I mean, look, if a dev team turns up and says, "We want to do Sponge Fabric," well, we're not going to stop you. We'll give you all the help you need. But yeah, unfortunately, we have enough trouble struggling to churn out SpongeForge in a reasonable time frame.
Yeah, and Waterpicker does mention that most of it would come down to time and energy. Yeah, I think that's it. And yeah, Mister mentioned that there are a few issues of the Fabric version of mixins that, yeah, conflict with Sponge. But I'm sure that could be probably sorted out. Again, that comes down to having developers actually work on that. So other people are more than welcome to. I think the mappings there, they may use the vanilla mapping, so it may actually be easier in some respects. Well, there's one less blocker compared to currently. But yeah, so I think there may be a slight advantage with the mapping issue, but I'm not totally sure on that.
Awesome. We've got people standing in our giant SOS sign.
Fantastic.
Makes a hell of a parkour course, if nothing else.
Miguel one asks, "Is there going to be a SpongeForge version for 1.19, or are you only going to release one for 1.20?" The current plan is to release SpongeForge for 1.19.4. Again, it's sort of a stepping stone upwards. Like, there's not currently, at least, there's not a huge degree of under the hood technical differences between 1.19.4 and 1.20.1 anyway. So we're planning on doing 1.19.4 as is. Yes, Rempler mentions Forge's LTS is 1.19.2, and yeah, that's going to be a sort of interesting thing going forward.
I have noticed that there's an awful lot of the mods that are out there seem to have stopped on 1.19.2 rather than 1.19.4. So
Yeah.
look at the all the mods pack and so forth.
Yeah, and that's something where it's a bit harder to tell. We made the decision to, because there were breaking changes between 1.19.2 and 1.19.4, and we decided to just go up to date with the latest version. I know Forge sort of froze a lot of things before then, but again, there's not a huge while there are big technical changes between 1.19.2 and 4, there's less between 1.19.4 and 1.20.1. So moving forward, at least, hopefully things update. Yeah, how Mojang's done things has sort of made things a little bit difficult to judge. So we'll see where things go from here, I guess.
The release cadence has gone weird again.
Yes. It's a little interesting. Okay, so I think that's most of our dip update stuff covered. So I want, unless Faith, did you have anything to mention on the 1.20 series?
No, not really. Like, the latest version will probably break some stuff again, but not major breaks. So
Hopefully, yes. Okay, so moving on to community, just a couple of little things here. First off, it's more of a question for the audience. We used to sort of repost our announcements and everything on, well, what was formerly Twitter, but given the sort of chaos with that platform, we ceased doing that a while ago. I'm sort of interested to know whether there's, an alternative platform that people would actually like us to post those updates on, like, for instance, Mastodon or Threads or so forth, or whether we're best just posting stuff on our forum and on the Discord. If anyone actually uses anything else, yeah, it's more of a question to see whether or not it'd be worthwhile doing. So let us know on that front.
Yeah, send us a tweet.
or whatever they're known as now.
Twats.
So something I also wanted to discuss that we also posted with the State of Sponge announcement was the new Sponge plugin competition. So it's finally making a return. It's long overdue. So this time around, we sort of wanted to keep things a bit more open-ended. So we've come up with a scoring system that we hope will allow the most people to enter. So the competition is open to anyone submitting their plugin on OR over the 3-month period between August 1st and November 1st, 2023. So it's already open. If you submit your plugins on OR, you basically entered the competition. Though if you can, please post your entry underneath the thread, just so we can keep track of things a bit more easier. So the rules are essentially, one, the plugin must be your own code, so you can't just take someone else's, rebrand it, and reissue it. 2, it must be for Sponge API 8 plus. So API 10 and 11 are also valid targets, and we've got bonus points allocated for supporting multiple API versions. So if you support API 8, 10, and 11, there's bonus points there, though that can be in separate jars. For the most part, it should be fairly straightforward to have support across versions anyway, though. 3, it must be a OSI compliant license with a public-facing source repository. So if you've got a GitHub or a GitLab or something, that's basically sorted. 4, it must be functional. So this is almost self-explanatory. Plugins that can't run will be disqualified because we just simply can't test them. And rule 5 is plugins may either be new or ports for API 7 and lower. So if there's an old API 7 plugin that's just sort of gone stuck, we kind of want to incentivize moving that up. So if you move a plugin from API 7 to the API 8 plus APIs, that can also be considered a new entry. We would appreciate you actually posting that in the thread because that's a little more difficult to keep track of. But yes. And multiple submissions are also allowed, so you can enter multiple plugins, but there is a maximum of 1 prize per user. So you could enter 10 plugins and you get a prize based on your best score. That would be ambitious. Someone can try that if they like, but we probably recommend giving good effort on a smaller number. But you're welcome to do whatever you like. And you must be either 17 plus or have signed approval from your parent or guardian to enter. Next few rules are basically saying the plugins have to be submitted within that time frame I mentioned, between the 1st of August and 1st of November. And the winners will have 1 week to reply from time of contacts, else a replacement will be chosen, and a community vote may be used to help aid the choice in the replacement. So following the close of the competition, it'll probably be a few weeks for us to go through and actually assess them and come up with our scoring. And then, we'll let everyone know. And the scoring will be done by a panel of 3 Sponge team members with a rating of 5 allocated for the following categories. So first is creativity, which is the inventiveness of the plugin in terms of code. So, coming up with new approaches to an old problem or something. Gameplay, so new or altered mechanics or connection. So like communication bridges, cross-server utilities, that sort of thing. 2 is just utility, how useful it is. So whether the plugin fills a gap in the plugin ecosystem, bringing features that are currently not available to the API 8 Plus ecosystem. So if there's sort of a little niche that's not being filled, that's where you can get points on that. And 3 is polish. So user-facing documentation, command autocomplete, ease of interaction, config reloading, just the little niceties that, make things a lot easier for users.
Yes, you don't get bonus points for it being in Polish.
Alas. Actually, yeah, that might actually count. If you've got multilingual documentation, I think that does actually count for getting.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so if you have your documentation in Polish as well, that counts for Polish.
Excellent.
So we'll have a score out of 5 allocated on each category by each judge. So there's a total of 15 points per judge, with bonus points added for multiple API version support. So if you support 2 API versions, say API 8 and 10, there's an extra 3 points. And support for 3 API versions, so API 8, 10, and 11, there's 5 points. Points will be summed to a total of 50, 45 points from judges, 5 from bonuses, and ranked accordingly. And the prizes are going to be a set of Steam gift cards. So first place will have a $75 Steam gift card, second place will be $50, and third place will be $25. In USD, I should specify that, given the propensity of us as Australians and Europeans on the actual panel today. So yeah, and good luck to everyone participating. So yeah, please get involved, post plugins away. Be a bit cool to hear back from people in the chat here if there's any sort of plugins that you think would actually make for good contest entries. A little inspiration for people to check out. So I've been talking for a little while. I'll take a look over the chat and see what else has come up.
Apologise for leaving you the main MC role.
That's all right. Okay, we've had a few replies. Most people seem to mainly rely on Discord and the forum. Yeah, some Lasek has left most of the platforms, just pure Discord. Ross Hopkins says, for better or for worse, you'll probably get the most visibility on Twitter. Yeah, that's true. It's more the things that we would be seen alongside with that we don't really care for. It looks, a bit messier these days. By Quantum Live says, I like getting news on Discord forums and the Fediverse. So, yeah. So that's the vote for Mastodon or similar. Okay, Waterpicker. Would mod, I guess that's compatibility, also count? Yeah, I think that definitely counts. Yeah, if plugins work well with mods. So again, that's sort of restricted to 1.16.5 at the moment, since that's the only current SpongeForge version. But yeah, if you've got, I think that might even fall under creativity with some of that. If you've got a plugin that sort of interfaces with a mod that wouldn't otherwise happen, that kind of counts. I'll maybe make a point of that under connection. But yeah, I think mod compatibility does count. Relevant perspective, localization support. Yes, yeah, that counts absolutely under polish. LexiQ asks, he says, is there a way to mark a plugin version as supporting multiple API versions? I don't believe there's one inherently, like you just say the sort of lowest common denominator, but if the API plugin also runs on 10 and 11, that does count. So if the one jar runs across multiple versions, that counts as multi-version support. I would just explicitly state that. But otherwise, if you do need multiple jars, that's also fine. If there are any more questions or comments or such about the competition, please discuss it. We'd appreciate feedback. It's been a little while since we've run one of these, and hoping to have a little fun with it. So,
Well, if we're done discussing that, then I guess we can move on to the documentation and a brief
yes,
update from that, I guess.
I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, okay. Look, I mentioned this briefly earlier, but basically one of the things we are trying to find out here, particularly with this server setup, is just seeking the last remaining incompatible mods that we have and incompatibilities we have with 1.16.5, seeing what it is we need to clean up for we can make a release, basically, because we do want to make a final release of SpongeForge 1.16.5 and move on. And so, I do encourage everyone to sort of let us know through the docs channels or whatever, even making an issue and so forth. Let us know about incompatibilities and pin them down as precisely as you can, so that we can at least document them and maybe even get around to trying to fixing up some of these things. Okay. Secondly, API 8 pages. We're still working on the API 8 pages. And we're going to thank Mo's Mister very much for the enormous amount of work he's done so far. But I'm sure there's more to come, and we do hope we can get some other people to help us fill out these pages too. It's a case of working out, which bits of the documentation need brutalizing for a modern age. And luckily, we do actually have an issue that actually has a lot of that summarized already, but thanks to the other doc stalwart STDDT. So we can share a link with that in general, but you can easily find that on the docs issues page, and you can have a look at what else we need to bash into shape for the final API 8 pages. And on that subject, that means we've got to move on to API 10 docs too. And that will come as soon as we wrap up a release of SpongeForge for API 8, because too many docs versions make editors bite the heads off newts or something. I think that about covers it for the docs, and any questions, go for it.
I'll take a look at the chat. No questions as yet, but I guess we'll answer them as they come up. So looking at a few other questions and comments, Waterpicker was saying, just knowing Sponge isn't going to be stuck on 1.16.5 modding wise would be nice to have knowledge of. Yes, well, we are actively working on it. As I said, there's currently a couple of blockers with regards to mappings, but this sort of ties into the next question, which is from NanoBig1. Have you given any thought as to what you support when NeoForge and Forge diverge and become incompatible with newer versions of MC? So something that's been discussed with the Forge and NeoForge people has been like the actual change of mappings. So if they do end up supporting the Mojang mappings, that'll make our lives much easier. As for what happens when they diverge, I guess that's something that'll, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. At the moment, they're both apparently one-for-one compatible, so there's not really any issue between the two. So we don't have to make that choice as yet. I guess, we'll make that choice when we do actually have to, when it becomes important. I know that's kind of a poor way to answer the question, but from our perspective, like as it is, like there is no difference between them, so there's nothing we can really do. I might just clear that sign up.
I guess one of the things we have to do is just wait and see how things pan out, whether the impetus behind both projects gets maintained for a start, and just how different they do become.
Yes, yeah. Well, we'll see where like the actual momentum and everything is. It's something that we have to assess when it comes up, really.
I mean, in that sense, when people keep asking for a fabric version, well, they could also just easily ask for a quilt version too, could they too, and so on and so on.
Yeah, well, it'll make the decision with the knowledge at the time. Mosmister says that they're staying compatible for 1.19.4, but will break on 1.20.2. So 1.19.4 will support both, I guess. 1.22 we'll find out. But as the version hasn't even been released by Mojang yet, we can't really say for certain either way at the moment. Okay. If there's any other questions I've missed, please post away. I'll try and get to those. I think we're mostly through all the content we wish to discuss. And then we might have, little play arounds, check out some of the little things on the server.
And run the usual Q&A.
Yep. But we've had a nice little showing on the actual server. We've got what?
We've got 8 or so players that aren't staff yet.
Yep. Good turnout.
I mean, the server was set, they're up to 50.
Yeah, but it's a modded server. It's a bit more involved to get set up. So we appreciate for everyone who's actually gone to the effort of installing the mod pack and joining us on here. Nice to have a bit of fun.
It is one of the things we wanted to show, that we actually managed to get SpongeForge working nicely with Create, which turns up in about half the mod packs these days anyway. But thanks very much to Yerry Gorix for doing a lot of the legwork on this one too. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that was a few months ago. Quite involved, I think. Oh, sorry, I cut you off there, Inscrutable.
No, that's all right. Carry on.
Okay, well, I guess do we want to just have a look around, have a little play on the server while we wrap things up and see if there's any more questions that come in? Waterpicker says, yeah, don't think this SOS is less a general sponge and more modded oriented. The create modding used. Well, this is just a general state of sponge. We just wanted to have it running on a modded sponge server for a change. But yeah, I guess we'll top things over one moment. Yep, people have started breaking in. That's probably a good time to let the chaos begin. I'll swap things over. Here we are. Inscrutable, do you want to show me around? We'll break out. People can start running around on the server. Let the chaos begin. Really? Um, kind of
I
neat.
mean, I think a lot of people have already seen what we've watched a lot of the players jumping around on the various objects around here, like a parkour course. Anyway, so I mean, Create lets you do a lot of really weird stuff, but of course, it makes a lot of good eye candy for a state of sponge too. So there's that.
Yes, yes. I do want to have a little wander over and hop on the little Ferris wheel we've got going. Oh, oh, nice and cute. We've already got a few people on there. That's neat. Inscrutable, did you want to turn the speed up on the Ferris wheel? Let's have a little fun with it.
There's a dial at the back somewhere. Find it.
Last talking about showing off a couple more mods. Yeah, we did consider that, but also we wanted to keep things fairly light because obviously letting people hop on the server. Oh, there we go. The Ferris wheel's going at quite the clip now. Right. That's neat. Get everyone. Yeah. We're basically wanting to try and keep things light, so it's really easy for people to hop on the server. But Sponge definitely does work with more evolved mod packs. We've also had quite a few people hopping on the Discord and asking for help actually dealing with those more involved mod packs. So yeah, we're trying to support things where we can. This is a risky place to be. Oh, someone's got. Oh, is this the triangle Ferris wheel you were mentioning? Oh, there's a few of them.
Yeah, I've got
Oh,
the
cool.
Ferris triangle up now.
That's kind of neat. All aboard. I do love the little minecart sponge in the background. Really adds character. Unless you give them creative mode instantly, having a server running for a short time would be plenty enough. I mean, we can give everyone creative now, I guess.
I wouldn't even bother with it. I put down a bunch of kits so people could do all sorts of weird stuff in the first place without too much difficulty. It is kind of frozen on daytime, so the mob problem is reduced.
Yeah, I did set the game rule earlier just so we'd have good lighting, but we can turn that off. Doesn't matter. Oh, oh no! Someone's broken our ride. Oh, that's sad. I'm gonna go check out our little spongy train over here. But yeah, in the meantime, were there any further questions or comments people had? Well, good luck. Oh no, someone's stopped the minecart. Let's give that a little push again.
It's technically got a cart assembler there, so this is one of those great things that Create has. You can actually
Hey.
attach a gigantic piece of machine on top of a minecart. I mean, since then they've updated and actually added full-on trains to the mod, so the modern version is rather different.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. Oh, oh, that minecart's fallen off. Someone's someone's had some fun with the track.
That's kind of what we expect. But I
Yeah.
mean, the fact is that this server hasn't crashed. The TPS is still pretty nominal. It's actually kind of surprising. And it's nice to be able to have, a Sponge modded server that isn't in grave danger of falling over.
No, no, it's quite stable, which is nice. I mean, this is the thing, like, a lot of the times when we do our save sponges, we're operating with the, experimental builds like SpongeVanilla and so on. So things are a bit more prone to breaking, and this is kind of what we wanted to show off a bit more. Like, this is the sort of approaching final release of 1.16.5 where everything's nice and polished. It's all working well. Server's not at risk of crashing. We've got good mod compatibility. So this is more like the end point of where we like to get to with these things.
It's really gives you a chance of out for the Spongineers who join to sit there and build whatever they can to show off and help us celebrate the end of the days of 1.16.5, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. Everyone's having a good time on the letters.
The SUS.
Who have we got down here? Neat. Check out everyone sitting on the top.
But yeah, if we've just about run out of questions, we'll have to wrap things fairly soon anyway. This will be one of the shorter state of sponges in a while, but we are hoping to hear from more of our developers again soon.
Yes, yes. Well, we'll be running another Save Sponge in, again, roughly 3 or so months. I think we're planning on basically having the next Save Sponge be a showcase of, again, that little plugin competition. So I guess that'd be a nice one to try and actually have the winners of the plugin competition all up on the server. Yeah, and show them off. That'd be cool. Do little demonstrations. Be fun if we can, have some people come in completely unprepared and sort of subject them to whatever ensues. We have had a bit of fun with that in the past. I think there was a cool little mini games plugin we basically forced devs into competing on. So yeah, if someone comes up with one of those and they happen to win, or even if they just look cool, let's go for it. Yeah, it'd be pretty neat. Oh, nice little cake with a smiley face. I like it. I might just go have a look at your little windmill setup. Down here, hello. Oh no, someone stopped it.
Yeah, someone seems to have been, going around tinkering with all
Oh,
the mechanics, but it's pretty much what we would expect.
Yeah. Oh, that's what you meant when you said the SUS. Yep. Someone's been having fun. That's fine. This is the point in the live stream where, yeah, chaos is a good thing. You can
Where Gabazoo will
go
be
nuts.
dropping TNT to the masses, yeah.
That's kind of neat. Looks like we've got a couple more little things that have come in. Lexi was saying there's only one breaking change between API 8 and 11 for plugin, which can easily be worked around. Well, that's nice. Yeah, most of the time it should be fairly straightforward. I think World was the sort of big one where there might be breaks. We'll see with 1.20.2. Things may still be in flux. Most Mister saying, are you expecting a lot of mod issues on 1.19.4 or did 1.16.5 clear up, fix that? I would hesitate to comment. Hopefully it helped. I would hope so, but we never know what the mods have gotten up to in the meantime. There may always be something funky going on. So hopefully things are compatible, but we will find out in due course. Relevant Perspective says the only concern the community may voice is the lack of speed haste between updates internally for the API and MC game versions. Talking about, the question becomes, is your concern with development team size or other reasons for future growth to be a slow pace? So this is effectively, Mose Mister commented here. Back in the API 1 to 7 days wasn't a problem. It was changing a lot in API 8 that broke a lot with regards to 1.13 essentially. The technical changes there caused a big change. As is now, SpongeVanilla updates pretty rapidly. We had like day one builds of 1.20 out. So SpongeVanilla is reasonably quick to update. I think a lot of that is due to Faith here, who's been really on the ball with regards to it and updating for the snapshots and everything. So it's less an issue of Sponge itself, as said, like we get SpongeVanilla updated. The API is typically updated fairly quickly for those, with the caveat that nowadays with Mojang's changes, there's a lot of sort of waiting for them to actually finalize their API version, their game version, so we can finalize the API. But with that caveat, we're fairly quick about it. The bigger issue is SpongeForge, which yes does take a lot longer to deal with, and currently that is due to those tooling changes I was talking about earlier. If we can get things fixed, or get things sorted, so we're sort of, as I said, waiting on both Forge and NeoForge, see what they're doing with regards to these mappings. That may improve things in the future. But if we can get everything over to the Mojang mappings, that'll substantially improve things. But that's more a question of like compatibility between systems, which once we've worked that out, that'll be much faster to deal with. I hope that wasn't too long of a explanation, but hopefully that helped, I guess. Yeah, Mose Mister said that with SpongeVanilla 1.20, Sponge released before Spigot 1.20 by now. Yeah. We were sort of ready to go. Faith was very on the ball with that, I think. And once again, thanks for that.
I basically had the snapshot builds already done, and there was no change at all between the last snapshot and the release, and so it was quite easy.
Yeah. It was good. We were planning on it. Like we made sure we wanted to have things out really quickly, and that's one where it was pretty easy to do. The point releases, we may occasionally miss things because there's a bit less, warning time with those. It sort of just happens when it happens. But the major versions we're pretty on top of.
Yeah, it really depends how much they internally break, so I can update for the current API, and then I need to look at what new API has to be introduced or maybe broken.
Oh, we've lost all the mechanics. Someone's gone and taken them. I'm sure to come up with something interesting. Spongy has been derailed. Oh, poor Spongy. Well, I guess with that, it's probably a good place to call things. So thanks everyone for showing up to Stay a Sponge 23. It's been good. And yeah, if you're interested in the plugin competition, yeah, go ahead, make entries. We're really looking forward to seeing what people come up with. Hopefully we get to show those off at the next State of Sponge and have a lot of fun with those. Yes, thanks everyone for coming. Thanks to Inscrutable and Faith for also being on here to discuss everything. Really appreciate having you here.
Thank you for holding it all together, Owen.
Excellent, excellent. And with that, I will bid everyone adieu.
Thank you. May the sponge be with you.